that was very good for him, you know what I mean? And everybody was envious, as I would be naturally at the time. But in reality now, obviously, I wouldn't trade it with him. Rest in peace. For weeks, Mulholland Drive stayed super quiet after a heartbreak that really shook up all of Hollywood. A loss so big it left an empty spot that looked just like Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle. Everyone was waiting for any word, any sign, anything at all from the couple who used to be the lively center of the canyon life. The news stories kept going around and around. Experts kept trying to guess what happened, and friends posted sweet messages that just made the mystery of their silence even bigger. But from the one guy sitting high up above it all, the real legend of the canyon, Jack Nicholson, there was nothing at all. No fancy statement, no friends leaking stuff to the reporters, not even some sneaky hint online. Jack always does things on his own time. He treats life like one big long movie scene. And this time was the same. So when he finally said okay to talk, it happened his way. No changes, no bright camera flashes, no fancy studio setup, just a plain recorder sitting on a strong oak table in his kinda dark living room. The sun was going down, making long golden shadows across the canyon that had been his safe spot for years and years. You know, he's actually a really nice, calm guy. His house is like a museum full of old memories, art pieces, and quiet stories from the past. It holds the weight of a life everyone watched, but he kept it locked up tight like a secret safe. He sat there with his sunglasses on, not to hide, but because they just feel like part of him now. His face looked thinner from time passing, those famous lines deeper now, shaped by something way heavier than just being famous. He picked up his glass. The ice made a soft clink, like it was marky. He takes a breath. His voice gets even quieter. Or maybe he did see it and loved him anyway. I can't even say which hurts more. The room feels frozen, like even the canyon outside is listening in. This, he goes on, is a story about that kind of love and what happens because of it. The kind of real truth only someone who was close enough to see both sides could ever share. The friendship between Jack Nicholson and Rob Reiner didn't start from big parties or chasing fame. It grew from years of quiet understanding, the kind you don't have to say out loud. Their bond wasn't from fancy events or red carpets. It came from the super intense pressure of one of the most famous courtroom scenes ever filmed. The movie, A Few Good Men. The year was 1992. People forget, Nicholson says, his eyes looking way past the room. Rob was an actor first. His voice gets gentle, like he's watching that day play again in his head. That's the important part. He leans back, lost in the memory. He wasn't one of those directors who just stands behind the camera yelling orders like a cop directing traffic, telling you where to stand or when to talk. No way. Rob was right there in the moment with you. Jack's voice gets excited with respect. He understood what it felt like to look at a blank page and wonder if the words would work or flop. I didn't have any real problems with him. And I don't really. There was a substitute male figure in the house. I have older sisters and married, and he knew the excitement, the fear, the courage it took to show yourself to the world. Most directors just watch from far away like watchers, you know. But Rob was right in it with you. His grin comes back. That classic sly Jack grin as he thinks about filming Colonel Jessup's famous angry speech. That monologue, he says, shaking his head, was full of tension. The pressure was crazy. The script written by the danger of believing too strongly, of being too sure of yourself. You're right. That talk changed things between them. It stopped being just about the movie right then. Jack goes on. It turned into two guys talking about real life, about what it really means to be a person. That's when I knew this wasn't just a job for him. He was looking for real truth in every shot he took. From that day, their friendship became solid, a friendship of total opposites. Reiner, the warm, big-hearted Hollywood liberal from a comedy family, and Nicholson, the private, wild guy from New Jersey. But we clicked, Jack says with a half smile. We'd grab lunch, not at fancy spots where people stare, but at some hidden place no one noticed. Or we'd just talk on the phone. His smile fades a bit, voice soft again. We'd talk about the Lakers, about politics, about getting older, but mostly we talked about our kids. That was everything to him. That was the center of his whole life. Nicholson's face gets serious, the warm light fading into the complicated glow of old memories, the kind that only live inside a family. He was so proud of Jake and Rami. Jack starts softly. He loved their energy, their drive. how they made their own way. He'd talk about them with this special shine in his eyes. That look only a dad gets. It was real. It was pure. But then Jack's voice changes. The air gets heavier. When he talked about Nick, he says quietly. The light changed. He leans back, voice steady but full of feeling. It wasn't less love. Not at all. If anything, it was more. But it had this heavy feeling. Look at him with his head kind of shaved. I don't know if that's what he looked like, but he looks like he's got a screw or an evil screw. So he was 32 years old. He was at a holiday party hosted by Conan O'Brien. A worried kind of love, the kind that keeps you awake at night. He stops, staring fey. Cars kept driving on the freeway, a helicopter flying through the sky, the sun shining like nothing changed. And I remember thinking, how? How can everything just keep going? How can the world move when mine stopped? His voice gets a little harder. That's the meanest part. The world doesn't stop for your hurt. It doesn't even slow down. Jack didn't turn on the TV, didn't look at any news. I already knew what was coming, he says with some anger. Nick was living in his family's guest house then. He was found late Sunday afternoon by his sister, Romy. Both parents were discovered, having been stabbed. The crazy media storm, the guesses, the gossip stories, old pictures pulled out again, people acting like they care while tearing into the story like hungry birds. He lets out a breath. I wanted nothing to do with it. So he went deep into the quiet of his house. The same house that used to have laughter now sat in total silence, a silence full of old memory ghosts. I couldn't stop thinking about Michelle, he says, his voice breaking for the first time. She was always the steady one, the calm in every storm. Rob, he was the big, loud heart of that family. Jack's eyes get shiny as he adds softly. But Michelle, she was its soul. She was pure grace and strong steel, Jack says quietly. The kind of quiet power that holds everything together. His jaw gets tight. The thought of what they went through in those last moments. That's the one that stays with you. It sneaks in when everything else is quiet. The kind of dark thing you can't look straight at. As the shocking details started coming out and Aaron Sorkin spoke publicly, his voice cracking with feeling, Jack stayed hidden. No statements, no showing up, just quiet. I wasn't thinking like an actor, he says. I was just a guy trying to figure out how I lost a friend and wondering if I missed something. I should have noted. All that built-up resentment, all the blame pouring out. Money, fame, life, every frustration. But the way he said it, the poison in it, it was hard to listen to. Nicholson's voice gets softer, the tension showing on his face. Then Michelle walked in, he remembers. She had this calm look, steady, like she'd seen this before and knew she had to calm it. She stepped right between them, put her hand gently on Nick's arm, and said his name, just his name. With that amazing softness she had, he stops, the memory playing in his eyes. And he brushed her off, Jack says, his voice dropping low, not hard or violent, but with this small, sharp move that said everything. It wasn't about strength. It was about no respect, and it cut through me. He takes a breath. Then he looked at them, both of them, his parents, the two people who gave him everything. And there was nothing in his eyes. No warmth, no connection, just this cold, empty space, like a storm going through a person. Jack shakes his head slowly. It was like looking at something that wasn't human anymore, just hollow. His voice cracks a little. Rob noticed me in the doorway, he says barely above a whisper. Our eyes met for maybe a second, but in that 1 second I saw it all. The shame, the fear, the heartbreak, and under it all, that endless deep love only a dad can have, the kind that never gives up no matter what. Jack's eyes get shiny. He gave me the smallest shake of his head like he was saying, "Don't just let it be." It meant, "Let it go, Jack. It's okay. This is just us, our problem." Jack's voice shakes a bit. So I did. I turned around, walked back out to that garden, and pretended I hadn't seen anything. He stops, jaw tight. That's my biggest regret, the one that won't go away. He breathes out hard, shaky, and slowly takes off his sunglasses. His eyes are red, raw, full of pain that comes from guilt too. It doesn't undo the horror. He breathes out slowly, his voice cracking just a bit. It's just numbers, like balancing books that can never add up right. There's a long quiet before he goes on softer. I keep thinking about Jake and Rami, he says. The ones still here. The ones who have to wake up every day and keep going. His face tightens with pride and sadness mixed. I read what they wrote, their statement. How they talked about love and memories. How they wouldn't tear down their brother even now. He shakes his head slowly, almost amazed. That's Rob and Michelle right there. That's them. That's how they raised their kids. His eyes get shiny behind the dark lenses in the middle of something this unthinkable. In the middle of a huge black hole of pain and betrayal, their first thought was grace. They're protecting what's left of their family's light, trying not to let this one awful act wipe out a whole life of love. He leans forward a little. That's real strength. That's love in its purest, toughest form. Jack stops, staring out the window where the city blurs in the late afternoon light. Maybe that's the only kind of justice you ever really get, he says finally. That the good they put out there, it doesn't die. It keeps going. He points a bit toward the skyline, his voice soft, but sure. It lives in the kids who didn't break. It lives in the movies, the ones that'll still make people laugh and cry long after we're gone. It lives in the memories of the people who really knew them, and they know that he's or feel he's not in his right mind. There is a report that he suffers from schizophrenia. Who knew the man behind the camera and the woman who kept his world steady? Jack gets quiet again. The city stretches below forever. A reminder that life, no matter how broken, keeps moving. The air feels heavy now. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. He spent his whole life directing heroes and villains on screen, Jack says, his voice low and rough. But the real heartbreak, the cruel part, is that he never saw the villain wasn't some shadow out there. He stops, eyes narrowing. The villain was right there under his own roof, his own blood. Jack's jaw tightens, the words hard to say. And that's a truth nobody can carry. Not fully, not a father, not anyone. The words hang there, final and crushing, filling the room with a quiet no sound can break. That's when it's clear the talk is over. No big ending, no last question, just a quiet nod, a flash of something hard to read in his eyes, a wordless, "That's enough." As the door closes behind the reporter, the last picture stays. Jack Nicholson, a legend, a survivor from Hollywood's best days, standing alone in his house above the city, surrounded by shadows that aren't from movies. Not the ghosts of characters he played, but something way more real, the ghost of a friend he couldn't save. And that was very good for him, you know what I mean? And everybody was envious, as I would be naturally at the time, but in reality now, obviously, I wouldn't trade it with him. Rest in peace. The silence from Mulholland Drive comes back once more, but this time it's different. It isn't empty anymore. It's heavy. Heavy with truth, with memories, with everything that finally got said out loud. It's the silence of a story that stayed hidden too long and now has its voice. Night falls over the canyon. The city glow below looks far away, almost not real. A sea of moving lights, not caring about the secrets whispered in its shadows. The recorder sits quiet on Jack's table, the little red light finally off, but the air in the room still feels charged, like the echo of a deep confession that won't go away. Outside, the wind moves through the trees, brushing the windows like a worried thought. A soft knock breaks the quiet. His housekeeper, Maria, steps in carefully, holding the morning paper. "Mr. Nicholson," she says gently, "you want me to leave it here?" He nods without turning. When she puts it down, the headline grabs his eye. Nick Reiner, trial date confirmed. Jack breathes out through his nose, eyes moving over the big letters. Tells NBC News that Nick allegedly interrupted a discussion involving comedian Bill Maher after Bill told him it was a private conversation. Nick reportedly stood still and stared before, quote, storming off. E! News has reached out to representatives for Bill Maher for comment. 32-year-old Nick was arrested the next day for suspicion of murder and is currently being held without bail. Reiner could face life in prison without the possibility of parole or even the death sentence. Having the death penalty on the table is absolutely a bargaining chip. The prosecution is going to leverage that to try to get some sort of deal. In a statement, the couple's two other children, Jake and Robbie Reiner, said, "Words cannot even begin to describe the unimaginable pain we are experiencing. They weren't just our parents. They were our best. Beneath the headline is a photo of Nick in court, face blank, looking small in his suit. He stares at it a long moment. He looks like a kid, Jack mutters. Just a lost kid. There's no anger in his voice, only being worn out. He folds the paper slowly and puts it aside, like he can't stand giving it power. You know, he says to the empty room, Hollywood's built on stories about redemption, second chances, big comebacks. But real life doesn't give rewrites. He walks to the kitchen, floor creaking under him, and pours another cup of cold coffee. The mug shakes a little in his hand, just enough to show the weight. Out the window, the city looks bright and fresh, acting like nothing happened. He takes a slow sip, and the wind blows through the canyon again, scattering ash from the tray across the floor like old memories fading. Down the hill, Jack's car starts with a roar, an old, strong sound breaking the silence one more time. The story isn't finished yet. It's just changing scenes. The afternoon sun hangs low over Sunset Boulevard, that golden time when the city shines and acts like it's still full of dreams. Jack's car, classic and worn but proud, moves slow through traffic like an old lion in its territory. Every corner, every billboard feels like a ghost of the past. He passes the old CAA building, the restaurant where he and Rob closed a deal once, the theater where they sat together at premieres. The world looks the same outside, but to Jack it's all full of memories that hurt. Every spot holds a memory, and every memory stings. So if there was, since there was blood found in the room, in the shower, and the bed, but there was none on him, he had perhaps the mental wherewithal to clean himself. He bought a Gatorade from a convenience store. He put his hands up when he was approached by the police, so there was enough awareness there. He finally pulls into a quiet spot behind Cantor's Deli, one of the few places in Hollywood that hasn't been made too fancy. Inside, online, it smells like old coffee and pickles, the kind of comfort only years can give. The waitress knows him right away, but doesn't make a big deal. She just nods small, the kind that says, "I know who you are, but I'll leave you alone." He orders black coffee and a pastrami on rye, though he barely eats. Instead, he sits staring at the framed photos on the wall. Faces of actors, directors, musicians, all gone or forgotten. "Whole town's a museum," he mutters, except no one remembers what the exhibits were for. A young filmmaker at the next table whispers to his friend, "That's Jack Nicholson." The friend looks over, eyes big, then looks away quick. Jack catches it and smirks a little. "Don't worry, kid," he says under his breath. "I'm just another ghost now." His phone buzzes again. Another message from Aaron Sorkin. "They want me to consult on the documentary. Should I?" Jack stares at the screen, thumb waiting. After a long wait, he types back one word. "Yes." He leans back, breathes out, and for the first time in days, his shoulders relax a bit. Maybe some stories have to keep being told, not to use the pain, but to remember. Outside, the sun starts going down, light spilling over the cracked sidewalk. Jack finishes his coffee, leaves some money, and stands. He looks older, yes, but also lighter, like a man who finally knows surviving isn't the same as forgetting. He steps back into the fading light, the city humming around him, ready, even if he doesn't want to be, for the next scene. Dusk covers Los Angeles like a slow curtain. The heat fades, lights come on one by one, and the city trades bright glare for a softer, lonelier shine. Jack drives without a plan through the canyon roads, the kind that twist and climb until you forget if you're running away or chasing something. He rolls the window down, letting wind rush through, bringing smells of dry bushes and flowers. For a second, it almost feels calm, until the radio comes on. The news mentions Rob's name again. The trial. The tragic story of a Hollywood family. Jack's hand tightens on the wheel. He turns it off sharp. "They just won't let him rest," he mutters. He pulls over at a canyon lookout spot he and Rob used to go to after late filming, talking about everything and nothing. The view is amazing. The city below, endless lights to the ocean. Jack gets out, leans on the railing, cool air hitting his face. I remember the first time we came up here, he says softly, like Rob might hear. You said this city looked like a promise. I said it looked like a trap. Guess we were both right, huh? He laughs quietly to himself, rough and tired. Somewhere behind, another car pulls in. A couple gets out laughing, taking pictures against the skyline. Jack watches them a moment, a mix of jealousy and old feelings crossing his face. Don't lose that, he murmurs under his breath. That innocence, that glow. Once it's gone, this town eats you alive. The couple leaves, leaving him alone with the view and the city hum below. He lights another cigarette, the flame lighting his face for a second. Older, worn, but still with that spark of fighting back. For the first time in days, he smiles. A real one. You were right about one thing, Rob, he says quietly to the night. We did all right. Then he breathes out, watching smoke drift over the canyon, melting into the night that once held their dreams. Night settles heavy over the canyon, the kind of dark that feels alive, thick, almost listening. Jack stays at the lookout longer than planned, the cigarette end glowing like a heartbeat in the dark. Below, the city flickers, a sea of fake stars made by people still chasing dreams. Nick did not understand the nature and quality of his actions at the moment. So Nick will have to prove that he lacked a basic understanding of where he was, what was going on, what he was doing. He flicks the cigarette away, watches it roll down the hill, and disappear. That's it, he murmurs. That's all any of us do. Burn bright, then disappear. No bitterness in his voice now, just quiet understanding. Maybe acceptance. As he turns to the car, his phone buzzes again. A number he doesn't know. Batistum. He almost skips it, but answers. A woman's voice, calm. Mr. Nicholson, this is Sarah Goldman from Variety. We heard you spoke about Rob recently. Would you be open to... He stops her gently but firm. No interviews, no quotes. That story's been told. She pauses. But, Mr. Nicholson, people would want to... People, he cuts in, want to turn pain into entertainment. I'm done feeding that. He ends the call and stands there staring at his phone like it's strange. Then he turns it off, drops it on the seat, starts the engine. Headlights cut the dark as he drives down the hill. Radio stays off, road empty. Halfway down, he slows past Rob's old street. The gate closed now, lights inside gone long ago. For a second, he thinks about stopping, but doesn't. Some ghosts are better left sleeping. At the bottom, he pulls over by a small old bar, one of those places time forgot, neon sign buzzing. Few people inside. He goes in, orders whiskey, straight. The bartender knows him but says nothing, just slides the glass with a nod. Jack lifts it a bit before sipping. To Rob, he says quietly, to the dreamers who still believe the light's worth chasing. The drink burns, the jukebox plays an old blues song, and for a moment the heavy feeling lifts. Not gone, but easier. Outside, the night goes on, patient and endless, like waiting for the next part to start. The next morning comes quiet, the canyon in soft silver mist. Jack wakes in his chair, half-empty whiskey glass still there. The light through windows feels softer, gentler, like the world breathed out. He steps outside to the deck, coffee in hand, looks over Los Angeles, a city that never stops shining no matter how dark its stories. The air smells fresh after the long night, the kind of morning that feels like starting over. For the first time in a while, Jack isn't running from the past. He's just letting it sit. He pulls out the old photo again, from A Few Good Men. Rob laughing, full of life, full of belief. Jack smiles small. You'd hate all the noise, buddy, he says softly. But maybe it's good they're still talking about you. Means you mattered. The wind picks up, tugging the photo's edges. He doesn't stop it when it slips from his fingers, just watches it flutter off the deck, catching light before vanishing into the canyon. A good goodbye. Jack takes one last drag from his cigarette. Smoke curls to the sky. You always said every story needs an ending, he murmurs. Guess this one finally got one. He turns back to the house, door closing soft behind him. Inside, the city hums, The world turns, and the silence on Mulholland Drive. The silence that once hurt now carries peace instead of pain. It's not the ending anyone wanted, but it's one that feels real. Because in the end, legacies aren't from tragedy. They're from the love, laughter, and light that stay long after the show ends. And somewhere in the big spread of Los Angeles, the story of Rob Reiner, Michelle, and the friend who finally spoke up lives on, not as gossip, but as a reminder. Even in a town of fake things, some truths are too human to ever fade. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful Hollywood stories like this one, and drop your thoughts below. What part of Jack's story hit you the hardest? Comment your take.